Welcome back, guys. In this video, we're going to talk about the signs, planetary rulerships, and how house rulerships work, which is a very important concept in astrology because it's going to help us to tie together some of what we've learned so far. And we'll start with the ascendant here. We see that this person has the ascendant at 11 degrees of this sign, and that sign is Libra, which is associated with balance, justice, and social grace. And the ruling planet for Libra is Venus, which we find up here in the ninth house. And this means that the themes of the ninth house are somehow related to the themes of the first house. And the first house is identity and sense of self, whereas the ninth house is higher education, philosophy, religion, and just expansion of knowledge in general. So those things play an important role in this person's sense of self. Then moving on to the second house. The second house cusp here is in the sign of Scorpio, and that is ruled by the planet Pluto. So we can look for Pluto and find it here in the third house. And again, this means that there is a connection or a relationship between the second house and the third house. The third house cusp itself is here in the sign of Sagittarius, which is ruled by the planet Jupiter, and Jupiter is conjunct the ascendant. So this person has their third house ruler conjunct the ascendant, and it may be impacting both the 12th house and the first house, because when you have a planet that is very close to a house cusp, then it is almost like it's standing at the doorway between two rooms. So it's up to the individual to decide if it's affecting primarily just one house or if its effects can be felt in both. The cusp of the fourth house is here in the sign of Capricorn, which is ruled by the planet Saturn. And we can look up here and see Saturn as the most elevated planet in the chart, sitting in the 10th house. This is interesting because the fourth house relates to family, and the 10th house relates to career and social status, and those things aren't always related. In fact, they usually aren't. But for this person, there is a relationship, and it may even be stronger because Saturn is sitting in the sign Cancer, which is associated with family. The fifth house here is in the sign of Aquarius, and Aquarius is ruled by Uranus. This is an interesting house because Uranus is sitting right here in the fifth house itself. So we have the ruler of the fifth house sitting in the fifth house. That not only strengthens the house and the activities of that house, but the planet as well, Uranus, can have a greater effect on the chart now because it is sitting in its own house. The sixth house here has its cusp in the sign of Pisces, and Pisces is ruled by Neptune. So for this one, we actually have to go backwards a little because here's Neptune here, and it's on the cusp between the fifth house and the fourth house. Again, it's kind of standing at the doorway, and it's going to be up to the individual to determine, based on their experiences, if Neptune is having a greater influence on the fifth house or the fourth house, or if it's just generally having its effects felt in both houses. But that is where the ruler of the sixth house is. Moving on to the seventh house. The seventh house here is in the sign of Aries, and the ruling planet for Aries is Mars, which is here in the sixth house. And the seventh house relates to our relationships. It could even be a spouse. The spouse is seen by the seventh house. So what's interesting here is that the sixth house of work is relating in some way to this person's relationships. So it could be that they meet their spouse at work, or they already had their spouse and they end up working with them, or they could maybe meet a spouse at the gym because the sixth house relates to health and fitness. So it could be something like that as well. Or this could be relating to their business relationships, and maybe they worked with someone and ended up having some sort of partnership, a business partnership with them. But all of those are possibilities in this case. And then we move on to the eighth house cusp, which here is in the sign of Taurus. Now, Taurus is ruled by the planet Venus, and I know that I said that Venus ruled Libra, and that is true as well. So a couple of the signs share the same ruling planet here. So for the eighth house, we have the eighth house ruler sitting in the ninth house because, again, it is Venus. The ninth house has its cusp here in the sign of Gemini, which is ruled by the planet, Mercury, and that is right here conjunct the ninth house cusp. So again, very strong house here. We have the ruler of the ninth house in the ninth house, and it's also conjunct the ninth house cusp. Then we move on to the 10th house, the midheaven, which is a very important angle. And the ruler of the 10th house for Cancer here, that's this sign, is going to be the moon, because Cancer is ruled by the moon. And it is in the 6th house. It's kind of conjunct the 7th house cusp as well. But this could mean that this person's career, their 10th house or social status, somehow relates to the 6th house of service, maybe providing some type of service for other people. There are a lot of possibilities there, but that is one of them. And then moving on to the 11th house. The 11th house is in this sign, Leo, and the ruling planet for the sign Leo is the sun. And we find that here in the 9th house, along with these other planets. So there's a relationship between the 11th house and the 9th house. So the 11th house is groups that we belong to. And that means that this person could belong to groups maybe that are related to philosophy, religion, higher education, something of that nature, something related to the ninth house. And again, that would just reinforce maybe why and how this person's identity is tied to the ninth house. Maybe it's tied to the ninth house theme so much so that they decided to join a group that relates to the ninth house. And then finally, we have this last cusp here, which is the 12th house. It's in the sign of Virgo, which, similar to how Libra and Taurus are both ruled by Venus, Virgo and Gemini are both ruled by Mercury. So we're going to look to Mercury again. So we have the 12th house here, and its ruler is here in the 9th house, or conjunct the 9th house. That is how we would interpret that. And all of this is going to help us when we try and put together the big picture of this chart.